Hi, it's Friday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. I am Doug Donnelly, and you're watching another episode of Weekly News Watch, a collaboration between Cecil TV and the Cecil Whig, in which the Whig's Matt Hubbard and I try to dissect some of the stories in our county. Good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon, Doug. Thanks for having me.
And we'll get you here. Where are you? There you are. Good to see you.
Yeah, you as well.
Um, so there's a few things to go over, I think. One, you reported on, and I think adeptly explained the some of some of the sausage making, the reserve fund, what's in there, what's discretionary, what isn't, etc. Could you enlighten us on that a little?
Yeah, so the ACR, the CAFR report, FR, the comprehensive and annual finance report came out, and that was, it was interesting. There was $108 million fund balance, which in 2021 that fund balance was at 75 million, and now 2023 that fund balance is up 32 million. So there's a lot of speculations and a lot of questions that a lot of people had because they just tell you, here's the numbers, right? And you look at it, and I broke it down, and I talked to the government, and I worked with them, kind of just really understand what this money really means, right? So in short, there's 108 million, but only 44 million of it can be used for whatever. But that money can't just be spent, right? This is a great time for this report to come out because it is money that has to be worked into a budget and passed by the council in order to be used. So if they put it into the budget, they could put all 44 million into the budget. They could put 1 million into the budget. It doesn't matter because they can use as much of it as they want. It's their fund balance, right? The question is if they're going to use it, what they're going to use it for, and we won't know that until April 1st when County Executive Hornberger introduced it to the council. So it's a lot of in the air, but that's through and through what it is just it's $44 million that is on the line for the budget.
It's not a small amount. It could go a long ways to,
Yeah, it's the largest fund balance in the history of Cecil County government.
Yeah. I mean, they could fulfill the school system's wishes with that. They could fix a bunch of roads. They could lower taxes.
Yeah, so that was a big thing that County Executive Hornberger brought up in her State of the County address was that with the looming recession, her words, looming recession in an economic downturn, that could potentially happen, they want to have such a healthy fund balance. That way, if something happens and, there's a huge fiscal impact on the county, they want to ensure that the community, their taxes aren't raised. So that's all I'm going to say about that. That is what they said the 44 million is currently planned for.
Yeah, so wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing that you reported on is, and that's something we've been talking about, is this, while seemingly not a huge deal, this zoning case in Bayview.
Yeah.
The council voted unanimously to turn down the landowner's request for a change of zoning, and it would seem that they were following the law. The evidence was that the infrastructure, the roads, etc., were not really suitable for multi-unit housing, etc. My observation is that if the roads and infrastructure are not suitable for multi-unit housing, are they suitable for 30 plus houses that the landowner seems that is his, the only way he can make money. He claims that's how he can afford to own the land.
Yeah. So one thing that was like dramatically left out of this whole situation, when it came to the decision-making process, was he was talking about a deed restriction. Now, I understand that when it comes to rezoning cases, they can't be conditional, right? But when it comes to the council making the decision, what didn't happen was nobody said to him, hey, this deed restriction, the deed restriction was that nobody, even if he sold the property or for however long he owned it, as long as the property exists right there on Bayview Road, nobody can build any further development, nothing. The buildings that are there stay there. The fields that are there stay there. That's all that could happen. Nobody from the council, they just didn't touch on it at all, this deed restriction. And I understand it's because, as I said, rezoning can't be conditioned, but this is something that, could have been further looked into and could have obviously benefited everybody. The land's not going to be developed because now that's in the air. The land probably will be developed now, but, that's uncertain. But, there was a whole element to this story that was just kind of, I wouldn't say it could have been evaluated,
Right. That, is the system so rigid that it's incapable of producing a satisfactory outcome? I mean,
well, yeah,
and his tenants got to go. The apartment is illegal, and that they will be replaced by potentially a housing development, which no one in the area wants.
Exactly. And you get into the weeds of it, and you can go back to, again, County Executive Hornberger and what she was saying at her State of the County, and how Cecil County works tirelessly to preserve its, heritage of being rural, right? I know that this isn't necessarily a rural area, but more development in any area is going to further negate, it being a rural area, right? I know this isn't crazy. It's 9 acres, but 32 houses on 9 acres definitely destroys the rural aspect of any area. So, there's a lot of, it's multifaceted the way you want to look at it. And I think that's what makes this case so interesting.
This question of rural, it's really more about just quality of life.
Exactly.
Not every area is beautiful and agricultural or whatever, forested in Cecil County, but they're, where people live, they care about, and they don't want to see. They don't want to see transformations that are going to change their lives overnight.
Yeah, and that's not anything that's just custom to Cecil County. People in general, they don't like change, right? Dramatic change at that. If I'm looking out the window and there's a field, and the next day I'm looking out the window and it's 84 to 1,035 houses, it's going to rub you the wrong way.
Right. Another thing, I had the opportunity to attend the school board's Citizen Advisory Committee meeting this past Tuesday. My reason for attending is because I have an interest in the Maryland report card, which has just come out. It covers the 21-22 school year, which is pandemic affected. It contains, for anyone interested, a wealth of data, and a wealth of data that we could spend every one of these things talking about for the rest of the year. But I was concerned. My immediate concern is, how does this report card inform what I would call the needs versus wants debate of the school budget discussion? And that it really didn't answer my question specifically toward that, again, because there's just so much data there. But so the presentation on that subject ended and moved on to other things, such as the new two-way dialogue meetings, which they're going to try out, and I guess we'll all see what happens. But the final discussion was related to House Bill 119. And 119 calls for penalties for school boards that do not strictly follow the state's curriculum. It started out, it related to health education, and and the various references to gender and whatever. But with the support, I don't know exactly how it got to where it is, with the support of the state's school superintendent, Dr. Chowdhury, it now encompasses all curriculum, all subjects, and the penalties are quite severe. I mean, if they're found to be outside of the state's recommended curriculum, it immediately costs them, 10% of their state funding, and if it continues, it somehow gets like up to 25%. In the opinion of our school board and the state or association of school boards, and even the state school board itself, that this is really goes against Maryland's tradition of local control over curriculum, and so there's lots of people opposed to it. It's a subject that, based on the makeup of our state legislature, could somehow make it through, and the results are unpredictable. So, I don't know. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So, like I was saying before, that's it's a lot of discretion to put into one person, right? The reason why a prime example is with concealed carry, right? In New York City, that got fought in federal court because they said it was unconstitutional, and what they came out to say was that it was way too much discretion for somebody to decide who gets to carry a handgun and for what reason, X, Y, and Z. This, is one person, aka the superintendent, because he's going to be, inevitably the person that writes the check and signs off on what these curriculums are going to be. It's a lot of discretion for one person to have over what goes on in school boards. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out if it does get passed. And it's also going to be interesting to see how it plays out between now and when they make the decision to pass it or not, because this is obviously something that's going to be brought up.
Yes. And, we'll see what happens. But you mentioned the concealed carry.
Yeah.
Well, that apparently is going to pass, and it opposes restrictions on where you can have a gun on your person. The restrictions don't seem so ominous to me, but if you're a 100% gun rights person, I guess any restriction is too much.
Yeah, with that SB1, the first bill that came out, super broad. Like it made it virtually impossible to carry a handgun really anywhere, right? And then so the amendment to it is actually kind of interesting, and it's something I'm still looking into because they have a lot of like terminology in there that's a bit, you can speculate. It's like special interest zones and stuff like that. So like, what is a special interest zone, right? So it's a lot of like stuff that it takes a lot of reading. Reading bills is not my favorite thing to do, especially when they have amendments to them. But yeah, that's an interesting one as well. And it's going to have, County Executive Hornberger, she's been testifying against it, her and Jackie Gregory in Annapolis. Yeah.
Yes. I'm not sure how the entire council sits on this issue, but I know uh, Donna Culberson also made mention of it at the last work session and would seem to be opposed to it. So, again, we'll see. Well, I think we've covered everything. Looking forward, what are you working on for the week?
Right now what I'm working on is gathering all of the senior level officials in Cecil County, getting their salary information, because that's going to be very important to when this budget comes out, because salaries, like any business, any workforce, make up a healthy percentage of budget, right? So to understand how much our local officials are being paid and where their priorities sit and where the payment priorities sit is definitely very important, and it's voter knowledge. You should know that. So that's one. The second one is this EPA thing that came out. They're trying to propose a maximum contamination level for PFAS chemicals, and it's 4 parts per trillion, right? Elkton, well 3, has over 20 parts per trillion, which is, a healthy amount times that proposed thing. So it's going to be very expensive on local governments to get these chemicals out of their water to meet these part per trillion, mandates by the state now that there's a little bit of law behind it. So that's another big thing that I'm working on. And outside of that, just not too much. These are going to take a lot of reporting, so it's, taking a lot of my time. But those are the 2 big stories that I have coming up.
Yeah, I guess I forgot that. Yeah, the PFAS levels are now law. So, Elkton presumably must act or whatever. I don't know how it affects the class action with W.L. Gore, but
that's something I was thinking about with that is there's not much that these attorneys are talking about with this lawsuit, and rightfully so. But the one of the big things that they said was there's a lot of private wells in that area, and one of the ladies that spoke at the the council work session kind of said she has 13.9 parts per trillion in her water. That's a lot, and that's double what this 4 parts per trillion is. So she has to get this out of her water, and I don't know if this law now gives her some sort of backing to where she can get reimbursement because it's an expensive process, or if she can get her well done. I don't know the process for individual wells is for getting these chemicals out, but it definitely yields that question as to what does this mean for private well owners, because municipalities aren't going to pay, but now they might have to. So it's very interesting.
Right. I would think that if you were a person with a private well and your levels were high, at this point, with it now being a law, does that mean that state or federal people would come and test and try to find out what the source is?
Well, again, with history, they're not going to unless they have to. And this law is going to probably make them have to do that. So that's going to be good for residents because it's going to, alleviate. In this article that they put out, the EPA, they said it's going to alleviate a lot of deaths and health complications, which is kind of mind-blowing because the last time I checked, which is every day, they say that, they're still learning more and more about these chemicals and they can lead to this and that, but like they've never deliberately said that they could kill you. So I think that that's a bit of an overstep there because quite honestly, there's just not enough data, and you look into scientific studies and there's not enough data to show that these chemicals lead to something as extreme as that. Health complications, yes, but to what degree and how much of an exposure do you have to have? And, it's there's a lot that's not in the know right now that is speculative.
Correct. Yeah, it's beyond us to understand. Okay, well, that's all I have. And this has been Weekly News Watch with Matt Hubbard from the Cecil Whig, and I am Doug Donnelly from Cecil TV. And we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.